Welcome. Live question and answers on Grow to Greatness. We're here in Charlottesville, Virginia this morning. The Darden Media team is here. Kyle is behind the camera because he continues to outrun the bear. And I have my research assistant, Catherine, here with me. And Catherine is going to basically help with the questions. And then, during the Q&A, you can use the tweet hashtag that's on your screen and send us questions, and we will try to respond with them. First, thank you for your engagement in the course so far. It's been outstanding. The work product's been good. We're coming now to really a very important part of the course, weeks 4 and 5, where we will focus on the 4 ways to grow, scaling boosters, and you'll have a great workshop on Eric Barger's situation. And I have high expectations for the workshop product. You did great work on Susan Feller's, and I'm expecting the same. A couple of announcements, just so make sure that I don't miss anybody in case you have to leave. We'll post an announcement about the final exam by Friday of this week, explaining how that is done. Part 2 begins April 29th, and Part 2 is the focus on the people. People, culture, high employee engagement, and building a management team. Several of you have asked lots of questions about the people part, and I've tried to give you a little bit of answers, but the whole course, okay, is on people on Part 2. Discussion forums. We've heard you loud and clear, and I happen to agree with most of you, all right? Discussion forums are hard to manage, and we're working in Part 2 to make that easier and better for you. Okay, we're ready to go. Catherine, do we have any questions?
We have a lot of questions. The first one has to do with the gas pedal approach. A lot of students have been discussing how and when to use that effectively.
Good question, good question. The gas pedal approach, when to let up and how do you know when to let up? Well, let's think about this. What's the evidence? What's the indications? What's the indicia, the data that you'd look at? And I think that what you're really trying to focus on, mistakes. Are my mistakes increasing? Do I have product quality problems? Are they increasing? Delivery timing, are we behind on orders? Do I have cash problems? I'm not getting paid fast enough, or I'm spending more than I have been spending and not getting paid. Customer satisfaction, am I getting more customer complaints? All right. Am I customers that should be buying, are they not buying and coming back? How's my employee morale? All right? So basically, there's lots of little indicia, and what the key and the hard part is, as the business grows, how do you know this stuff? How do you get the information on a daily basis? And I would suggest to you, chart it. Keep a master chart where you could basically say quality issues, customer issues, timing issues, cash issues, employee morale issues, and each day say, okay, today I had 2 of this, 3 of this, 1 of this, 0 of this, and keep an ongoing chart on a daily basis. And if you think about what I'm talking about, it's really what bigger companies do with technology. Bigger companies with technology every day get, because of technology, real-time metrics on their key points that they use to manage the business. In the beginning, when you're building a business, you don't have that technology. You got to create your own form and do your own counting and your own listening. But I think that's the issue, is to have a system, have an early warning system. Okay, another question?
Okay, this one was a thread that a student started on an interesting topic. Luck versus knowledge in business success. Any comments?
Luck versus knowledge. Well, that's an interesting question. There is serendipity, which happens, but a lot of this luck part of business, and people talk about it, and this is just a personal opinion. This is not research, all right? Luck is really seeing opportunities and taking advantage of them. Now, the fact that you see them and take advantage is more than just luck. You've got to recognize them. You've got to be looking for them. Do things just happen through serendipity fall into your hands? Yes. But being able to recognize, is this a golden egg or is this a broken egg? All right? So you got to recognize what an opportunity is and decide where to go. I think that a couple of things. Timing is important when you're really trying to grow a business and scale it. All right? And what's the cycle of the business you're in? What's going on with the competition? Is there that opportunity, that year or 2 years where you've got the ability, because you put in place the processes and controls, to hit that pedal and scale it and get ahead of the competition? So I like the definition that luck is where preparation meets opportunity. I also believe that you got to recognize opportunities, and good entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs that build businesses, when you study them and talk to them, they are really great at pattern recognition. They are really great at recognizing changes, differences, and opportunities, and sensing and responding. And so, is there luck? Yes, there's luck. I wouldn't build a business on luck, though. Any others?
Okay. This question comes from week 3 on the 4 Ps regarding prioritization. How do you sort of work that in, especially when you have urgent versus important issues?
Oh, prioritization. I'm thinking, folks, okay? I'm thinking. This is not canned, rehearsed. Let me approach prioritization this way. There's 2 types of prioritization. Okay? Are you with me? 2. 1, there's the big strategic prioritization. 2 inches wide and 2 miles deep. And what that means is that I've got a focused customer segment that I'm delivering a certain kind of product or service. What it doesn't mean, okay, is the following. It doesn't mean that I'm only delivering yellow cabinets. I can deliver brown, blue, white, brown, whatever color. It means that I'm delivering certain kind of cabinets. So I can basically have diversification in my product offering so long as I stay within my product. The second type of prioritization is what you, the entrepreneur, does every day when you go in. Okay? Every day is showtime. Every day is something different. How do you prioritize? How do you have your checklist of what you want to tackle? What's at the top of your worry plate, as Julie Allenson said. So I think prioritization, okay, is both daily prioritization and macro strategic prioritization. And something I learned years ago from one of my first managers. He said, Ed, the first thing every day is do the hardest thing on your list or the thing on your list that you don't want to do. Because once you get it done, the rest of the day is a success and you'll feel good about doing it. Don't procrastinate and put off the hard discussion, the hard conversation, or the hard problem. Attack it first. And I can tell you, okay, I've been in the business world and doing this for over 40 years. Every day when I come in before I get to school, I have a priority list of what I want to attack every day. And at lunch, I check it off and I remake the list for the afternoon. It's worked for me. I'm not saying it will work for you. It's just an idea. But have a way to prioritize daily. And then the question is, well, how do I prioritize items? Well, what's really important? Quality, ethics, legal, my reputation, cash flow, happy customers. Always remember, without customers, you're out of business. Okay, that was a good question. That was a tough one. That was a tougher one than some of the.
Well.
Yeah, well, thank you. All right. What we got next?
Okay, next is upscaling employees. How do you do that, or how do you predict which employees will want to be upscaled during the hiring process?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm going to basically handle that one concisely because a large part of part 2 is about employees. Hiring, training, onboarding, how you engage them, the need to upscale, and who can be upscaled, and for those who can't be upscaled, what to do. But I'll say this. The best book that, and I found this through the entrepreneurs that I researched. They're the one who brought it to me. And I read it. I since have used it in my consulting practice with growth companies, high growth companies, is a book called Top Grading by Bradford Smart. And you can find it on the internet. It is the best book out there on this whole question of people, processes, and upgrading. And bear with me, okay? All of part 2 is about the people part. Part 1, which we're in now, is really about strategy, operations, the high performance, the customer centricity, the 3 W's, the 4 ways to grow. Part 2 is all about the people part of the business. Okay. All right. And remember, if you want to respond, debate, ask, okay, use the hashtag, the tweet hashtag on your screen. Catherine's got it up on her computer, and we will try and respond as best we can. Okay.
Okay, moving on to a new topic, effectuation theory. Some students have proposed that on the discussion forums as something to discuss.
Yes. Effectuation theory. Effectuation theory is a theory of entrepreneurship that a professor here at Darden has basically founded and made popular around the world, Saris. And let me explain it this way. What is it? Her research of serial entrepreneurs, okay, basically showed that serial entrepreneurs, when they're starting a business, focus on what they have, not what they don't have. They use what they have, and they figure out beforehand, I'll use her terminology, what's their allowable loss. In my terminology, they make small bets. They don't bet the house, the ranch, okay, the farm, their savings. And they get engaged in customers. And there's really 3 different theories out in the entrepreneurial world today that are being discussed. Effectuation, lean startup, and then the work that Professor Litka and I did on learning launches, which is being used in bigger companies, in entrepreneurial ventures in bigger companies. And all 3 of these theories, lean startup's outstanding, okay? All 3 of these theories have commonalities. And the commonalities is proactivity with customers, small bets in experimentation, do not take high risk, okay? Learn as you go and iterate, okay? And the lean startup stuff really comes out of theories that big technology companies in Silicon Valley have developed over the years, and I call it the Silicon Valley mindset. And that is the minimum, we'll call it the minimum value proposition or the minimum viable product, okay? Don't work on the product till it's perfect. Get the minimum viable product, put it out there, and let customers give you feedback and let customers help you improve it. Small bets, engage with customers. Don't take huge risks. Learn as you go, iterate. That's what really effectuation, lean startup, the learning launch, that's what they're all about. And there's a common thread here. The common thread is constant improvement, learning. And always work to make it better, all right? And so that's also what we'll be talking about in week 4. That's a good question. Okay, how are we doing?
Okay, next up, ethics. Here's a good question. What are the best practices in ensuring that ethical issues are given due importance as a company decides to grow?
That's a good question. You need ethics. Why do you need ethics? 1, because it's right. 2, because ultimately your brand, the integrity of your brand is important. Are you delivering what you're promising you're delivering? Are you delivering it in a legal manner? Can your customers rely on you? Can your customers trust you? It's all trust. Can your employees trust you? If your employees can't trust you, do you think you're going to get high engagement? Do you think they're going to work really, really hard to make you successful if they don't trust you? I don't think so. In part 4, I keep coming back to part 4. And maybe next year when we offer the course, we have to, Catherine, offer part 2 is part 1 and part 1 is part 2, I don't know. But the people part and the ethics part, I think cultural issues and value issues and why you exist, mission. As companies grow, they need to stand for something, and they need to be able to explain to their employees, why do we exist? What's our mission? What's our values? How are we going to operate? What are our rules for internal operation and external operation? And then our culture. What are sort of the guidelines and boundaries? And all of those come together and is where ethics, if you will, is institutionalized in a company. Now, it's never fail-safe because it depends on peer pressure and constant reminder. Okay? If you think about it, I made the comments in the films about the Ritz-Carlton meetings every day where they talk about one issue. Well, a lot of that is talking about values, okay? And a lot of it's talking about key operational principles. You got to consistently educate. And you can't educate enough about what's really important in how you want your employees to act vis-a-vis each other, customers, and society. So, the building blocks: mission, values, culture. Building a culture is like building a house and having a house. You got to constantly work on it, otherwise it falls in disrepair. You know, and it's interesting. I'm working on a case study now of a private company, entrepreneurial company in San Francisco. Fascinating story. Let me give you some statistics for a moment, okay? Bear with me. I don't have anything prepared like a slide. Maybe I should have. My apologies, okay? But I just thought of it this morning, if you will. 2003, this entrepreneur failed his first venture. Failed. Thankfully, he was in Silicon Valley, because in Silicon Valley, failure is not a negative, okay? Bouncing back from failure is a plus. He started a new company in 2003. He had no income in 2003. He had zero income in 2004. 2005, he had $245,000 of income. Okay? 2006, he went to $700,000. And then he doubled in 2007, 2008, 2009. And then he upscaled, and then he scaled. So he went from 2007, $1.5 million income, to $60 million of income in 2012. In 2012, he sold the company for $400 million. That's a great story. And the case focuses on how he did it. And it comes back to this issue that I was just talking about. The big issue when he went to scale was scaling people. And in order to scale people, I not only needed processes, I needed culture. And he told me that in that period of high growth, he divided up his day, and he spent 1/3 of every day on culture, 1/3 on people, and 1/3 on operational excellence. I found that interesting. And when he got to the point of $6.5 million in revenue, he brought in very senior, experienced people to help him scale, all right, from basically 6.5 to 15 to 40 to 60. But that issue about where he spent his time, that culture issue, goes to the ethics and the brand and the quality and what he's trying to do. Interesting story. I'm going off on a little bit on a tangent. Is that all right, Catherine?
That's fine.
Okay, all right.
Go for it.
All right. Fascinating experience last week at Darden. I've always been a fan of the container stores. You can go on the website and look at them. I've shopped in them and everything, and they've always shown up for years, best place to work, all right? Private company. Well, the CEO, Kip Tyndall, came and spoke to students here and to a conference at Darden. Very interesting man, very interesting man. What's really fascinating besides the company and the man is his college roommate in college was John Mackey, who's the founder of Whole Foods. So here are two people, college roommates, both who created very people-centric, ethically oriented businesses. And if you go on the Container Store website and look at their foundation principles of operation, it's really something that's worth your time just to see how someone created their own culture and used it in words which you will never see again. And lesson number one And I have it here, and I want to share a couple with you because I thought it was so important. Lesson number 1, one great person equals 3 good people. They hire only 3% of the people who apply, and because they have great people who are so productive, they pay their people 50 to 100% more than the competition pays their people. One great person equals 3 good people. He says this decision that companies make about quality or service or price is not the right decision. He says you can have great quality, great prices, and great service. And Rule 4 in his foundation principles is the best selection, the best service, and the best price. For those of you who asked the question about luck, and then there's been, in the threads running out, there's been some questions about intuition. Here's principle number 5. Intuition, and I'm reading, excuse me. Intuition does not come to an unprepared mind. You need to train before it happens. And his new employees, their first year, get 263 hours of training, and then even part-time employees get 170 hours. But isn't that sort of interesting? Intuition does not come to an unprepared mind.
Makes sense.
And it does make sense, doesn't it? And he talks about Einstein. He said Einstein said his theory of relativity was an aha moment. And Kip says, no, it wasn't. He spent his entire career studying physics and thinking about it. It's all of that that's going on in your mind. And so I thought that was an interesting comment. Okay, how are we doing? Any of you tweeting in to Catherine? All right. Somebody send a tweet so we know that somebody's on the other side of that lens. It's not just Kyle outrunning the bear.
I have a good question, though, because we've been talking about scaling employees and culture. And one of the students raised the issue of some of the size inflection points we've been talking about. 1 to 7 employees sort of is the max for management. And she asks, how do you reconcile that with a lot of pressure companies now face to flatten the organization?
That's a very good question. Yes. Big companies today are going flatter. Big companies today are asking managers, leaders to do more. And I'd answer the question this way. First, it depends on the type of business. Certain businesses lend themselves to flatness better than others. 2, it's the age of your business, okay? The age of your business and how long your managers and employees have been with you. At what level can they take on, if you will, more people? And then I go back to technology. If you look at companies that really have been successful in flattening and expanding that, I can manage 50 people, for example, or I can manage 10 managers instead of 7. Many cases, not all, many cases, they've got early warning systems that are basically technology driven where the manager, leader has data, real-time data, all right? And remember the company that I just was talking about that I was doing the case on that basically doubled and did so well and actually grew employees and over that 3-year period from 40 to 300, all right? What made that possible was technology and the fact that he had on his desk, okay, on his PC, he had a basically master scorecard, metric scorecard, which he got was real time to the minute of everything going on in his business that was important to him. And he could look at that just like looking at a radar screen. And he could tell what the numbers looked like and what was going on, all right? And when he was, and where he needed to go, where there was a potential issue or problem. So I'd say to you, you can manage more people when you've trained them well, when they're experienced, when your business is not a volatile, ever-changing, high-velocity business in a dynamic industry, and if you've got good metrics and you have those metrics in an early warning system that you can get them frequently, all right? And as you grow your business, that evolves. And so, is it possible? Yes. Now, let me make a point. A lot of you have asked questions on the discussion forums and said, well, isn't so-and-so an exception to this rule? In business, what we're putting out is general concepts. Many times you're going to be weighing and balancing things, and it comes down to making a hard decision. All right? And there are very few business rules which are so always encompassing and applicable that they rise to, quote, being a natural law. One of them is supply and demand. Okay? You know, that basically supply and demand drives pricing. It drives really whether you're successful in the business, because it's what underlies competition. All right? But the number of people is what the research shows is usually what works. Can a certain individual manage more? I had one CEO that had 10 direct reports. He then upped it to 12 and then went down to 7. And I asked him, why'd you go from 12 to 7? He says, 12 was too many. I said, why didn't you go back to 10? He says, I learned from doing the 12 that I wasn't doing that great a job on the 10, I could do a better job with 7. I said, what'd you do with the extra 5 people? He said, I made them report to the people that was reporting to me. So it's just general rules, all right? And so use them, and a lot of what I'm trying to do in this course is to give you a framework, a template, a way to think about growth and growth decisions, a way to think about operational excellence, a way to think about strategy, a way to think about, if you will, constant improvement, so that you've got a framework when all of this growth chaos is going on. And you know, a shout out to the Charlottesville study group. They invited me, and I spent an hour and a half with them last night, and I thank them for that opportunity. But you know, they made some points that, you know, we talked last night. This building a business, okay, you never really get it right. It's rare that you can ever coast. As Julie said, there's always something new on your worry plate. And the fact of the matter is, building a business is a lot like, you know, that old saying, making sausage. It's really messy, okay, but the end result can be pretty good.
I have a few questions hot off the discussion forum.
Great.
This one has to do with another of our 4 Ps, processes. This student, all the way from Australia, is asking, how do you reconcile the necessity for processes with sort of this notion that we want to empower employees to kind of go off and be entrepreneurial themselves?
That's a good question. That's a smart question. And he or she uses the word empower, all right? And it's like liberate. Well, what's the purpose of processes? The purpose of processes is to basically build in predictability and standardization about quality control, about, if you call, the critical value generators you're doing. Why do you need processes? Well, you need processes. Let's say Catherine is working in a business. She's bright, very bright person. She's got her way of doing it. And someone empowers her and says, Catherine, here's the end result, do it how you want it, okay? Well, Catherine's sick. Catherine gets a better job. Catherine decides to leave, all right? Someone new comes in, how does that person start? You can't in a business start completely over and give that person 30, 60, 90 days to figure it out, to do it their way that meets your standards. So processes are trying to produce reliable results, standardization results, but processes also are risk management tools. It allows you to basically bring in more people, different people, to do the same job without having that learning downtime. Because when you have the learning downtime, you can't deliver as much to your customers. So processes serve multiple, if you will, purposes. Now, okay, how do I empower people with processes? Well, one, you empower people by saying, look, I want to know how we can do this better. You listen to their ideas for improvement. If they're good, you actually change the process. You don't have to process everything. You only have to process the most important things. And you can say, okay, this is what's important. Now, how you do these things is up to you. I'm going to give you leeway. I'm going to let you use your creativity. And I think what happens in empowerment in organizations, so long as people feel like they have some control over their job, some control over their destiny, which means they're listened to, they can improve the processes, they have some leeway. It's not robotic. It's not totally mechanistic. And in no small business ever gets to the point where it's totally mechanistic. So what's the key in this empowerment versus processes is explaining what is not negotiable to here's where you got leeway. Now give me your best. I want to hear. I want to listen. Let's try things. Let's learn. So I think they can exist. I think they must exist. I think you cannot, in a business, you can lose sight of the fact that delivering high quality products or services consistently on time is what builds your business. And to do that, you need processes, instructions, checklists, recipes. If you're going to have a larger number of people engaged in that delivery, manufacturing, production process. Even if it's in a service business. Let's say you're in a retail store. I come into the retail store. Jim waits on me and comes up and says, "May I help you?" I say no. I'll come back the next day, okay? And Julie comes up to me and says, "Nice to have you here. May I show you what help you find what you're looking for? If you have any questions, let me know. I'm here to help you." I think that's a process question, not an empowerment question.
Great answers.
Huh?
Great answer.
Thank you. You're kind. You're kind.
All right, I have something
And
off.
let me let everybody know. If it wasn't a great answer, Catherine would tell me. That's why I like working with her. Okay.
All right, we do have a question on Twitter. This one has to do with an advisory board, which came up on one of the cases. Talk about the how you go about putting one of those together, and is that somebody you pay, or is that just gathering your support?
Okay, advisory board. Let me approach it this way. If you think about one of the key concepts in this course, and that key concept is the research shows every small business faces the same challenges as you grow. The second principle of the course, the challenges and the solutions at $500,000 of revenue generally won't work at 500,000 or $1 million or 5 million, all right? So the solutions have to be upgraded, if you will. Since the research shows all entrepreneurs go through the same challenges, wouldn't it be nice to have an entrepreneur mentor who has a company bigger than yours so he and she could say, yeah, I had that issue and I tried these 3 things and they didn't work for this reason. And this worked. Now that doesn't mean you have to do what they did, but you got information, which means you can eliminate some of the obvious things that won't work so you can improve faster. You can make fewer mistakes. So first, I'd say every entrepreneur, it would be beneficial to find mentors or be part of an entrepreneur support group. 2, as the business grows and gets really big, okay? And I think you're talking here bigger than 50 million, maybe bigger than 100 million in revenue. Would you want an advisory board to act like an advisory board of directors? Possibly, okay? It depends on whether you're self-financed or you have outside financing. It depends on what your end goal is, all right? Whether you want to basically continue to build to sell the business, to even go public. And who serves on that advisory board depends on what your needs are. Most advisory boards in the beginning are retired people or friends, and they do it because they want to help, and you basically serve them nice dinners at the board meeting, or you go do some social event, okay, without spouses or significant others or whatever, okay? At some point, yes, you have to pay people for time. So what you find is that you can spend too much time with an advisory board in the beginning and not enough time as you get bigger deciding big issues such as succession planning and whether to expand into different markets or to even diversify. So complex, no easy answer. The easy answer is if you're between, $50 of revenue, and you won't be in this course probably at that, but if you're a small business and trying to grow, an entrepreneur mentor or mentors, very helpful. Someone who has been through what you are going through and can save you time because you can learn from their experience.
All right, I have another live question coming in off chat. This has to do with culture. We've talked a lot about culture, and this student wants to know, how do you go about building your culture? Are there sort of standards or rules for that? Are there any special books that you can point students to in terms of helping to build that?
Okay, another good question. I know it's the wrong answer. I know you're going to be frustrated, but I will ask your patience for part 2. Because in part 2, you're going to basically study 4 cases, 4 stories of how people built cultures. And also, what were the components, and then how that helped drive high employee engagement. And you're going to have 3 cases where in the workshops you're going to be asked to go through and list all the things that entrepreneur did to create that culture. What was it? And all the things, in all 3 of the cases, these happen to be he's, all 3 of the cases, what he did to get high employee engagement. So bear with me. I think coming out of part 2, you will see some commonalities. You will see some best practices. I think that you will see, back to the empowerment question, you will see the power of empowerment plus values and processes, especially hiring processes, training processes, measurement reward processes, and you will see then the value of emotional rewards for, if you will, cultural goods, behaviors that evidence the culture. All right, and the truth of it is, we've got 6 cases, 2 optional cases and 4 required reading in part 2, all of which are about the question that they're asking about. And all those cases and the information will be basically made available about 1 week prior to the April 29th kickoff. And so I would say, hold on, we're coming.
Okay, here's one that I anticipate you'll have a lot to say about.
Okay.
It might be more in the philosophical realm, but this student asks, what is more important in building a business or growing a business? A great idea, creativity, or persistence?
A great idea, creativity, or persistence. Okay. I'm leaning down here, Kyle. I'm resting here a moment with my elbows. I know that's not good posture because I'm trying to think how to handle this one. All right. The idea part. There's a lot of good ideas that don't work. All right. And for the idea part, it really comes back to customers. It's the reason effectuation and lean startup and learning launches are so important, okay? It's the 3 W's. What am I going to sell? Who am I going to sell it to? And the big one, why are they going to buy from me? You got to have a really compelling customer value proposition to get customers to overcome their inertia. For example, if I'm going to open up a delicatessen, and make turkey sandwiches. Well, somebody that wants a turkey sandwich, if they really want a turkey sandwich, they're already eating it at some other restaurant. Why are they going to change and come to my business? What's compelling about my turkey sandwich that's going to make them come over? Now, more than likely, it's not going to be price, because if I charge substantially lower than the competition, I'll go broke, because they're still in business and so their price is producing a profit. If I go lower, I may not produce a profit. Now, there's a range there. So, and also, a lot of people with great ideas that customers did not want. They were ahead of the market. This especially happens in technology, all right? There's a lot of very successful technology products out there today that sat on the shelf 10, 15, 20, and I know of some 30 years before the market was ready for it. So is the market ready for it? So it needs to be a differentiating idea that there is a compelling need for now. Do you have to be creative? No. In fact, if you look at most people that have built very successful businesses that have become big companies, most of them were better, faster, or cheaper, not creative. They were operational excellence companies. Now, it doesn't mean it hurts, all right? Persistence. You have to persistently learn. If you persistently think you have the answer and the market doesn't, the dog doesn't want to eat the dog food, and you consistently keep putting the same dog food in the bowl, you're going to go broke. So persistent learning is what's important. Adapting and responding to the feedback you're getting. Entrepreneurship is a learning, iteration, responding process. Entrepreneurship I am the most creative person in the world. I've got the best idea no one has seen. First of all, it's unlikely that you're going to think of anything, or I'm going to think of anything that someone else hadn't thought about. And I'm going to keep making this and selling this until I have a breakthrough. I don't think so. You may get lucky. Whoops, I said that word that goes back to the beginning.
Dear.
Yeah, you may get lucky. Okay, you may get lucky. But I would say to you, stay with the fundamentals, all right? Learn, listen, sense and respond, iterate, okay? Get your product out there to customers. That's why if you're starting a business, it's best to start the business part-time, in your basement, at home, on the weekends. Make something and go take it to a fair and try and sell it. Go find customers, get feedback, improve, build some referrals instead of just taking something out there. It's and you may have serendipity. You may, for example, one of the people in my studies, very interesting man, Mike Malachi, San Diego, California. Love Mike, great guy. Has a company that's very, very values, ethically, social responsibility oriented. Okay? Mike basically built the company, all right, wanted a company to make the best tasting roasted nuts. And he was a technology guy, but he fell in love with roasting nuts, almonds, okay, and other kinds of nuts. And so he did it at home and took them rented a kiosk in a shopping center in Southern California. Guy came, bought some nuts. Next weekend, guy came and bought some nuts. Same guy. Third weekend, guy came and bought some nuts. And says, I love your nuts. Can you basically produce them in a large quantity? I mean, Mike was just doing it in a big kettle in his basement. He said, sure. The guy says, I work for this big retailer, I won't name the name, and we'd like umpteen million pounds of your nuts. I'm going to put them in all the stores in the West Coast. Wow. Okay? That's sort of like Mike had an idea, he got feedback. Was it luck that the guy just happened to walk by? Maybe. But opportunity, preparation, Mike had gotten the process down of how to make the nuts that were tasty because he had lots of other customers before. So I'm not a big fan which is more important. Sort of like building a business is like baking a cake. You got to have flour, baking soda, egg, water, maybe some sugar, maybe some chocolate, maybe some nuts. You need lots of things to build a business. And focusing on which is more important, no, you need a lot of things. And you need sort of, and the constant through all this is it's not about you and it's not about your product, it's about the customer. And are they willing to pay? Is the customer willing? Okay? Is the customer willing? Okay? That's US dollars, for those of you not in the United States, I don't have your currency. Willing to pay. Okay? Pull money out of the pocket and pay. And then learn from that customer. So, sorry about that one. I love your question. I love your question. I'm just going to take the answer a different place.
I figured you would.
All right, we have a minute time for a few more.
We do. We've got another one hot off the press here. This goes back to one of our CEO quotes from this week, I think, about diversification and whether that kills focus. This person says, I understand the importance of focusing on what a company's good at, but should you diversify just so you don't put all your eggs in one basket?
Yeah. That's a good question. And the answer is, it depends, whoever is asking the question, what you mean by diversify. All right? Should you diversify your customer base so you don't have all your eggs in one customer basket? Yes. Should I, let's just use an example, okay? I'm making sweaters. Should I diversify and make sport coats? Well, that's a completely different product. What do you know about making sport coats? What do you know about getting the fabric? Do you know how to manufacture? That's a high-risk diversification. If you know how to make sweaters, okay, is there something else like sweaters that use the same product, the same knitting, okay, processes that you can make? Should you make scarves? All right. Should you make sweater vest? Should you make young adult sweaters? So diversification also is a question of timing. Okay? When should you be thinking about diversification? Remember, 2 inches wide, 2 miles deep. You should be thinking about diversification when you're about 1.5 miles deep. When you think, wait a minute, I still want to grow, and I've gotten a large part of the customer segment. Now how can I grow? And that's what we're going to get to in week 4. Okay? What's the scaling boosters? Okay? What else can I sell to those customers which is complementary to what I'm already selling? What other services can I render to those customers which relates to what my expertise is? And then you get to the question, can I make my product more cheaper where I can basically have different tiers of markets, just like the car dealers do, just like BMW does, or Mercedes. Then you get to the question, should I diversify geographically? Basically, you got to get pretty big before you start having those issues, all right? So, I would say to you, in week 4, when you go through that, focus on the scaling boosters and think through, you want to be able to manage the risk of customer concentration, but also you want to manage the risk of being a generalist or so-so over several types of different products. You want to go deep into the market. You want to leverage your capabilities and what you're good at. You want to use the same, if you will, equipment and fabrics or whatever to make other things, so your supply chain and your distribution is the same. You don't want to basically diversify and have completely separate businesses. And then most people have found if they diversify geographically, if they don't have good processes, if they don't have good people, and if they don't send people from the home office operation or store to open and run the new place, it's high risk. And if you open another operation more than an hour or hour and a half away from the home operation, you run high risk. One of the most successful restaurateurs in New York City, Danny Meyer, he's written a great book on entrepreneurship. When he first started expanding his first restaurants, his rule was, I need to be able to walk from restaurant number 1 to restaurant number 2 in so many minutes. And his first restaurants all were within short walking distance. And only after he got very big did he open up a restaurant that he had to take a taxi from restaurant 1 down to the Metropolitan Museum in New York City.
All right, here's another question off the live stream here. This has to do with employee and manager turnover. And the question here is, what happens if you're facing an issue where you can't pay them what they think they deserve or what their career progression demands? That, in a certain sense, would suggest growing in itself so that you can hold on to these employees that you think have a lot of value.
The answer to the implied question is, do you have to grow in order to keep good employees? And the answer is no. And I think that, again, bear with me. Part 2, you're going to read the Room and Board case. Room and Board, you can go on the internet and look them up, is a fabulous home furnishings chain which for years has refused to grow and only opened stores very infrequently. And you will read in that case, and this is an organization which has high loyalty, high productivity, high employee engagement, they're paid well, and one of their rules is that if you want to go up the ladder, this is not the place for you, because we're not going to grow to accommodate that. You've got to be satisfied being a professional in the store you're in, doing what you do for your career and enjoying who you work with, what you do, and having a work-life balance and being paid very well. So it's interesting, this whole concept here. Do I have to grow in order to keep good employees? I think the answer is you have to really ask, is that a sufficient reason to want to grow? Because even if you grow, you may not keep those employees, and you may be growing for the wrong reasons. Okay, let me make a few comments. The film, video film. You can go on the YouTube channel, Darden MBA, and the film of this will be posted on the video lectures on Coursera. I want to thank Kyle and Gary and Fred and Chris and Matt for their help with this, and Catherine for her help. I want to come back to my opening remarks. Final exam instructions will be posted by weekend. Part 2 starts April 29th. Thank you for your comments on the discussion forums. We're going to try and make that more manageable and encourage people in week 2 to basically keep the size of the forums in subgroups so that people can basically get to know each other and have conversations. Week 4 and 5 upcoming is critical for the course. Critical. For those of you looking to grow, it's all about the 4 ways to grow, how to scale, scaling boosters, okay? And you'll have a workshop with Eric Barger that basically had a business that had flatlined, and you're going to create a growth plan for him, and then you'll see what he did and how he basically grew his business in a short period of time 10x, tenfold. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your tweets. Thank you for the team. Thank you for your engagement. And more to come. Onward.